Hi, everyone. Good afternoon for those in Chile joining today. Welcome to the information session on a wonderful program and opportunity we have, the Luksic Visiting Scholars program at Stanford University Center for Latin American Studies. My name is Gabrielle Trasati. I'm the International Outreach Coordinator for the Luksic Foundation. We do have a great event for you guys here today. I will start with just some brief information on the foundation and the types of initiatives that we support. And then we are joined by the team at Stanford CLAS, Hector Hoyos, who's the director, and Elizabeth Saenz Ackerman, who is the associate director. They're going to provide a presentation, give some details on what to expect from this program, how to apply, what is included. So you'll sort of get all of the information that you would need to apply. And then we also have special guest, Luksic scholar Ana Figueiredo. She is currently there on campus at Stanford completing this program. She is from the Universidad de O'Higgins, a professor, associate professor there at their Institute of Social Sciences. So she will be able to provide the sort of scholar experience side, and we will leave some time for a Q&A at the end, whether you guys have questions for the Stanford CLAS team or for Ana herself, or of course from me at the foundation. So just to start with some brief information on the foundation, what we really seek to do is contribute to Chile's development by empowering people through training and education programs. So actually beyond international education, we also have programs in education, namely in vocational training and vocational centers. In entrepreneurship, we offer financial resources, mentorships, training programs for entrepreneurs in the country. In sports, we specifically have field hockey and football, or soccer schools, as I would say, for young kids. And we're also looking at sports as community building initiative, bringing in parents and whatnot. And then in terms of additional support, this takes form in emergencies and donation funding when things like that do happen. But namely in international education, what we're really seeking to do here is create stronger connections between Chile and the global academic community to better address today's challenges and those of the future. That is why we promote access to programs such as the Luksic Visiting Scholars at Stanford CLAS. And our history actually dates back to the early 2000s. We've been lucky enough since then to implement over 30 programs across 7 countries in collaboration with 18 institutions, one of those, of course, being Stanford CLAS with us here today. And as a result, over 2,000 Luksic scholars have been able to partake in these programs supported by the foundation. And just a few years back, that is when we decided to offer a platform community, the Luksic Scholars community, to continue to provide post-program opportunities to unite all of those who participated in programs as such. And I'll share a bit more about the community in a few minutes. So what do our current international programs look like? There are master scholarships. These are full scholarships, including tuition, living stipend, arrival cost, such as accommodation, flights, for example. And then in research, where we're going to focus on today, there are fellowships for academics. Of course, being at Stanford CLAS, we also have a doctorate in political science. These are also fully funded programs. The idea is that one can go abroad and not have to worry about the financial aspect side, that they can be studying or fully involved in the research abroad. And lastly, we have courses in Chile in which we invite international experts to come to the country to provide short certification programs given in Spanish with simultaneous translation. So that allows sort of for us to be able to have a greater reach in terms of program participants. And all of those who form part of these programs are then invited to the Luksic Scholars community, this international alumni network of scholars. So what do our research programs today look like? There are 2 fellowships, one at Harvard Doctor CLAS and Stanford CLAS. We will be focusing on Stanford CLAS today. 4-month program there at Stanford's campus. And then, as I mentioned, the doctorate in MIT political science. And if you're asking how to access the Luksic scholarships, so the first step is to understand the admissions and selection criteria for the programs of your interest. So in this case, Stanford CLAS. You then apply to the program and the scholarship opportunity via the university, via the institution, following their admissions financial aid protocols. The foundation doesn't have any participation in these processes. And then you essentially will await a response from Stanford CLAS on the notification, sort of the status of your application. And so now finally getting to the actual program, this is a very unique opportunity for academics, researchers of any academic field, scientific discipline to spend 4 months there at Stanford. The Center for Latin American Studies is wonderful. They're extremely welcoming, very kind. Hector was actually in Chile just this time last year, and they really have an interest in receiving Chilean academics or academics working in Chilean institutions there on campus. There's a lot for you guys to support or sort of to contribute to Stanford CLAS, so they're really looking forward to seeing your applications. I know Hector will provide some more specific details, but the length of the program is 4 months. This can be starting in September, January, or April. What is included: the flights, housing support, a living stipend. You get access to Stanford's extensive library resources. You're living there on campus. Here's some photos. Actually, that bottom right photo is from a previous scholar showing all of the women scholars there on program. So of course, women academics are certainly encouraged to apply. And when I say any sort of academic field or scientific discipline, there have been 7 previous scholars before, and they represent hard sciences such as nanoscience, quantum materials, there's energy engineering, social sciences such as philosophy, economics, education, law. The idea is that this is very interdisciplinary. And so anyone is very much encouraged to apply. You must hold a doctorate in current academic appointment to do so, and there are 2 fellowships available. And just to close, in terms of the support that the foundation provides, of course, we are very lucky and find it of extreme value to be able to give that financial support, but we're really also looking to give the institutional support, this sort of before, during, and after, so that you really feel that you are taken care of, that you're not going to Stanford alone, you know, that you have previous connections there. We gather scholars together before they go abroad here in our offices so that you get to know other scholars, you get to know our team, we want to get to know you. That is really important to us. It's something that we value. Also, in terms of actual more tangible opportunities, post-program, you actually have access to an annual fund that we offer. This can be from any academic, professional, personal initiative. You're writing a book or a paper, you're going to a conference, you want to invite an expert to a conference. Those are the types of initiatives you can apply for. So we're really looking forward to seeing who the next Luksic Scholars are. And we're happy you're here. Thank you for your time. And I will now hand it over to Hector from the CLAS team.
Terrific. Thank you, Gabrielle. I'm Hector Hoyos. I'm a professor of Iberian and Latin American cultures here at Stanford. I also teach comparative literature. I've been here since 2008, so something like 16 years ago. Elizabeth.
I'm Elizabeth Sainz-Ackerman. I'm the Associate Director here at the Center for Latin American Studies, and I have been at Stanford for almost 13 years.
And it's just not just a matter of speaking. We do look forward to learning from you all and reading your application materials, sharing them with colleagues here. Así que, por favor, anímense. Now, let me share my screen with a quick PowerPoint presentation. So you've all seen this iconic image that is Stanford University, the leading research university in the West Coast. Folks from Chile are very close to the West Coast, and yet they tend to travel to the East, and we need to remedy that. We're working hard. The center was founded in 1965, and here you can see where we are housed. It's a beautiful historic building on a side of campus. This is a quick description, if you'd like to take a read, of how we understand ourselves. We are a hub for interdisciplinary research, meaning we want to have a rapport with every school on campus and incentivize schools doing research on Latin America, thinking as Latin Americanists. And this, of course, includes Chile. No Latin America without Chile, certainly. We support faculty and student initiatives, including teaching, scholarly travel, language study. We partner with several private foundations, including, of course, the Luksic Foundation and the United States Department of Education. And we also collaborate with other programs on campus that have different areas of expertise, be it political science, environmental studies, history, public service, cultural studies, and many, many others. Our community here is composed of a team of 7. It's pretty amazing to think that we run this very complex operation with only a staff of 7. We have Elizabeth, the associate director, myself as director. We have a faculty director of graduate studies. There is a library curator who's affiliated with the center. We have an academic and student services person, someone who does events and communications, a person who works on public engagement. So when some of you come to the Luksic, you'll get to interact with all of those folks in different capacities. Now, we have 91 academic affiliates at Stanford. 91. I'm emphasizing this because, again, CLAS is an interdisciplinary hub. So it is a platform that will allow you to be in touch with faculty from really across schools, of which there are 43 faculty who do research on Latin America currently. So I can think of a number of colleagues who have done research in the past, and so they are affiliates, but they're not working on Latin America, so they're not research faculty, right? This is a quite significant number if you think of the kind of multi-year research and teaching commitment that comes with a tenure line at a Research One university in the United States. We have 43 experts at least. Now, in any given year, so this is the number for any given year, we host something like to the tenor of 4 Tinker visiting professors. The Tinker Foundation in New York City is one of the oldest doing this kind of work, and we host 4 visiting professors through the Tinker. We are fortunate to host 2 Luksic scholars, 1 Nabucco, focusing on Brazil, and 1 Latin American Perspectives lecture. And I also want to mention this because this is open to scholars who publish in the journal Latin American Perspectives. So another way that you can perhaps have a visiting scholar affiliation with Stanford is if you have published in Latin American Perspectives, then you're eligible. So I just would like to put that out there as well. We have 8 to 12 master's students, and Professor Figueiredo has been a formidable citizen to those 8 to 12 Master of Arts students who stand to benefit from your being here and who can also serve as guides and integrate you to the broader communities at Stanford. We have 2 dissertation writers, so folks currently, 1 historian and 1 anthropologist who are finishing their dissertations at the center. So those are very compelling interlocutors as well. We have peer mentors. You wouldn't get to interact much with the peer mentors, but just to signal the kind of support that our students and affiliates have here. Now, in terms of our programming, we have 21 rather, Friday lectures in a given year. That means we have folks who hold a PhD in a number of disciplines who work on Latin America. They are very engaging, cutting-edge researchers, and every Friday, give or take, during the quarter, we host them, we get to learn from them and interact. Alongside those, we have special events, we co-sponsor events from other units on campus, and we have a quite significant engagement with public engagement through Title VI. For those of you familiar with that, meaning we contribute to knowledge about Latin America beyond academia, beyond the ivory tower, as it were. I'm happy to share this snapshot where you will see your colleague, Professor Figueiredo. This is an example of the kind of Friday talks that I'm talking about. So the first one was on Haiti. The second was on Paraguayan, Brazilian, Argentine music. The third was on labor relations in the Caribbean, right? The fourth was on science, technology, and society studies, STS. And of course, the fifth was on social psychology from Professor Figueiredo. So this just to give you a flavor of the time you would be at Stanford, what kind of conversations you would be a part of. The short answer is many interdisciplinary conversations having to do with the region broadly. This also gives you a very clear picture, and I'm happy we're recording this. This is the work of a colleague here at the Center for Latin American Studies who put this together, Sara Clemente. And what you see here is a distribution of the primary disciplinary affiliations of speakers at the center. So you see there film, urban studies, immigration, law, theater, art history, photography, I mean, you name it. It's as diverse as it gets. And then you also see in the pie chart below a distribution of the nations discussed. And we're not thinking nation states necessarily, we're thinking nations. So that means that the Mapuche nation was well represented, actually. So was Guatemala, or Brazil, or Argentina. You can, get a sense of how broad-reaching our programming is by design, right? We ideally want to replicate this kind of distribution every year. It doesn't always happen that way, of course. Now, about the Luksic, which is the subject of conversation today. It was launched in 2021. So right as we were reeling from the pandemic, and we've had 2 visitorships per academic year for stays of up to 4 months. Typically, I want to say that for you all, maybe this quarter works best because you have the long vacations in Chile. And so if you have a commitment in your institution and you want to be here, then that's easier to finesse with your courses and other commitments there. I would encourage you to check how quarters work at Stanford because we are here from September through December, then January through early March, then April through June. Those are the windows to see what might work best. There are no teaching responsibilities. The idea is that you focus on your research. In connection to your research, we hope you will give a talk here at the center. And I think that's actually a boon for your research and for integrating it into the broader community. There is a stipend and a housing subsidy available. Elizabeth knows all of the details. And we'd like to encourage particularly female scholars and members of traditionally underrepresented groups from regional institutions in Chile. This is an encouragement. Of course, it's not a requirement, but we do encourage folks from these places to reach out and share that with other colleagues, please, so we have a robust body of applicants. In 2021 through 2024, you can see here the distribution by discipline, by rank. I like that a lot because, ideally, this shouldn't be a top-heavy program, meaning it's not for very senior or the most accomplished scholars necessarily. It's for folks in different moments of their academic career who have a projection, right? So we have had an associate professor in social and political psychology, an assistant professor in economics, assistant professor in law and political science, sociology and public health. There's a bit of a typo there. Of course, the discipline is philosophy. And Bernardita was a full professor, right? We've also had a researcher in applied, another type of apologies, physics, and a full professor in engineering from a really nice spread of universities, right? Of course, Católica de Chile is represented twice. It's a major research hub, but we also have Universidad de los Andes, Diego Portales, O'Higgins, Católica del Norte, and Federico Santa Maria. What are the requirements then? Would you like to maybe field this one, Elizabeth? I've been talking too much and people are starting to tune out.
I mean, it's just those, well, okay, so the requirements are to hold a doctorate and a current academic appointment. And we may waive those two if for independent scholars based on their trajectory, you know, it does not necessarily have to have those two requirements if their trajectory, you know, is equivalent to the academic appointments and the doctorate. In addition, we require a statement of purpose and a Stanford faculty sponsorship letter. This we started having that, and we realized that we really wanted to encourage universities that are not in Santiago. They had sometimes less access to networking with some faculty. So we are also asking in lieu of that letter, you can provide a list of 2 or 3 faculty that you will be interested in collaborating with, meeting with them. So, you know, you don't get the letter, don't worry, you know, just make sure that you do some homework, look at the faculty. They don't need to be affiliated with CLAS. They just need to be a Stanford faculty.
So I see we have a question in the chat. The question came up, how many people apply per year? Do we recall that number?
Not at the top of my head, but I
there are 2 spots available each year, and I would just say it is quite a competitive program. So definitely would encourage applying sooner rather than later. And then in terms of affecting application, whether you work with a professor at Stanford that's not affiliated with CLAS, from what I understand, that it can be with any professor there at the university.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, also from our vantage point, this is an opportunity to integrate ourselves more with conversations across campus. So yeah, the more the merrier, indeed. Now we also ask for a dean or a chair letter of endorsement. That would be your decana or decano, sending a letter saying that they do support you leaving your post for this opportunity. A CV, and I'll just mention that oftentimes in Latin America, CVs have such details as age and a picture, and we prefer you do not include those for reasons of discrimination, meaning your age is not relevant, and how well you look in a tie or a beautiful other attire is not relevant. So if you can spare us with those, we won't have to blur them out when we circulate them among our colleagues, per the custom here. There is a need for English proficiency, meaning you are conversant. I think the formal requirement is advanced medium, and the goal there is for you to be able to participate in the academic life of the university. So without this, it doesn't really make much sense. Sure, you could do your research. Our librarian is bilingual, but you would need English to just interact and function here. Important dates. We have the application period opening October 1st, closing January 31st, and notifications are sent March 31st. I think those are the latest figures. And then I see questions from, let's see, Luis Manuel Marcano Salazar. Does the project need to be submitted in English when applying, or can it be submitted in Spanish? In other words, should the application be in English? I'm a doctor in history.
English is preferred, although, you know, the committee is formed by faculty here and most of them are bilingual, but English is the preferred language.
Next question. The faculty letter must be from any department, not from the Center for Latin American Studies. Actually, not at all from the Center for Latin American Studies, but from another academic at Stanford who is vetting your expertise in a domain, right? That is not the Center for Latin American Studies job, at least not at that first stage, right? Do we need, ask Professor Feddersen, all materials to be submitted at the same time? Yes, ideally. There is if I'm not mistaken, a Google form that you can upload your materials onto. So I think you can save the materials before you submit it, if that's helpful, Professor Feddersen. From Andrea Avaria, is there any topic or area that could be a priority? Well, that is a good question. My answer is no, but as in any process, in any selection process, let's imagine, right, that someone is working on rainbows, and for the last 6 years we've had rainbow scholars, and you have for the 7th year another rainbow scholar. You know, committees might be inclined to say we need to vary, right? Issues having to do with social justice, I know are important for a number of readers in committees. So I'll also mention that in full transparency, but we're not requiring or prioritizing topics or approaches for that matter. Who is the committee might be the follow-up question. The committee is composed of Stanford faculty. So imagine you have a biologist who is Mexican, has been at Stanford for 25 years, runs a lab. Imagine a sociologist who is Argentine. Imagine a US citizen who has a little Spanish, but he has done some field research in Nicaragua, and that person is also in the committee. So the people there are going to gauge how relevant your work is within a discipline and also for a broader audience. Indeed, talks at the Center for Latin American Studies are open to all, right? So if you're an economist, you won't be talking to a room full of economists. You're going to be talking to 2 rows of economists right in the front of the room, and everyone else from different disciplines and levels of seniority. Also, master students are going to be there. 2 more questions. Yeah.
Sorry, I know there's a lot of questions coming in. We can save these for the end if that's best. And so you guys can finish your presentation. We'll get the Anna, and then of course we will leave time for those questions because I'm sure there will be quite a lot. But thank you so much for answering some of those. Perfect. Okay, great. So yeah, thank you, Javier, Andrea, Glorimar, for placing your questions. We will definitely get to these in the next, I would say, 5-ish minutes. We do want to hear from Anna on her experience being there on campus. She's going to talk about her motivations, why she applied to this program, why Stanford CLAS, how this program has been beneficial to her research, to her career, and advice. We would love to hear some of her advice as well. So thank you, Anna, for being here today. It would be great if you could introduce yourself and explain why you chose to apply to the program.
All right. Thank you much, Gabrielle, for the invitation to be here. Also, Hector and Elizabeth for having welcomed me so warmly. I arrived in September, so I applied in January. So the deadline was January this year, and I decided to apply to come for the period of September and for 4 months, even though there is a possibility of adjusting a little bit the time. I think that's also important for some people to know in case they have to discuss that with the university. And in terms of my motivation, you know, working in Chile and working specifically and mostly with underrepresented groups, you know, in an underrepresented context, Chile within the current literature in social and political psychology, for me, it's really important to kind of, I wouldn't like to say showcase, but to bring these voices into other audiences and other hemispheres and spaces where I think it is relevant to bring, you know, for example, Mapuche voices, but also voices from um, from migrant communities that have been arriving in Chile throughout the last decade, because Chile was not, for example, a historically migrant receiving country. And one of the main reasons also is because I work at the Universidad de O'Higgins in Rancagua, which is a very young university that opened its doors in 2017. So first we were in an installation process, now we're in a consolidation process. And of course, there's a lot of need to internationalize the university, right? To make these connections with universities, both within the region, but also outside the region, in the global north, in the United States and Europe. And I thought it was a good opportunity, not only for myself, of course, and I can get to that, but also for my own university as a way of expanding its international relations, and potentially even open the doors for future students to, you know, apply to master's degrees, apply to come and join master programs, PhD programs, and other opportunities that they might have here or through the Luksic Foundation, of course. And in terms of my personal interests was that, of course, there's a lot of research on Latin America, on indigenous communities, but mostly coming from anthropology. And I know there is more to it. And I knew that Stanford, and specifically the Center for Latin American Studies, would be a good place to be in touch with more multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary perspectives on the study of indigenous peoples, indigenous nations across Latin America. And I knew I could learn a lot from being here and from learning about that. And also, of course, from the wonderful infrastructure that the university itself has, and specifically for the amazingly curated collection of Latin American literature that exists at the Social Sciences Library. That is also part of the work that CLAS does. And my experience since applying until, you know, the first time I had a question before I applied and sent all the documents, until I arrived, people were very friendly, from Hector, Elizabeth, but especially the person that was in touch with me, and she's not here any longer. But anyways, the entire team was always very quick to answer any questions, any doubts that I had, to help me throughout all the process with the visa, also with tips for housing, finding housing, and so on. Palo Alto is an expensive city, but they were really helpful, you know, in guiding me and understanding me how things work. So in a way that made the process very, very easy. And yeah, since being here, I felt really, really welcome. I must say, I feel part of the team, you know. I come every day to the office. I enjoy being in the office, and especially the Friday lectures for me have also been a really interesting opportunity, because sometimes I might not be listening directly to topics I work with, but I can always find something that I can relate to. Even, for example, when we had a musician, you know, and he was talking how this music came from the mixing of an indigenous group and their music with European settlers who came. And even through that, you can understand, you know, processes of indigenous cultural adaptation to the colonial processes that we know that occurred, and that, of course, had conflict within them, and everything. So I really think it's a very interesting and very fruitful environment to be in, even if at times you think it's not completely related with what you're doing, you're always going to find a way, you're always going to find a link, no, and a thread that really connects what the center is doing with what it's being done. And also, I must say that the students in the master program, they're brilliant students. I've